Lane Kiffin's luck is about to run out as he gets ready to play the Oklahoma Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. I'm John Williams of Sooners Wire and USA Today Sports. On today's show, we're going to discuss who needs to have their best game this week against the Ole Miss Rebels. Last week, it was the offensive line in the run game, and they showed up and showed out. Who needs to have their best week this week? We'll discuss that in the third segment. In the second segment, we're going to talk about how Oklahoma needs to continue to lean in on that offensive line and that rushing game's performance last week. But first, we're going to start with this. The Ole Miss Rebels, they've been playing with fire all season long. They had a close game against the Georgia Bulldogs this past week in Athens, lost by 8, and it was one of those games that Ole Miss was very much in control of. They had a chance to win it, scored on their first 5 possessions, touchdowns, to get out to a 35-point start to that game. And then in the second half, it just kind of all started to unravel for the Rebels. But they've been playing with fire all season long. Going into that game, they had played already a bunch of one-score games. And that was just that was the 5th one of the season for them. They'd played a one-score game against Kentucky in week 2 on the road in Lexington, a one-score game against Arkansas at home. They trounced Tulane, which, hey, that's a really solid win over a solid coach in John Summerall. But again, only beat LSU by 5 at home, only beat Washington State by 3 at home. And then again, they lost to the Georgia Bulldogs. Eventually, some of that one-score game luck is going to run out. There's a regression to the mean that's going to occur. You know, they're 4-1 in one-score games. You have to be really lucky to find yourself on the significantly plus side of that in one-score games. You know, last year, Oklahoma was unlucky in that, and a lot of it due to a talent deficiency, a quarterback that just couldn't protect the football, unable to extend games, extend leads when you had the opportunity to do so. Special teams wasn't as good. For Lane Kiffin, for Ole Miss, again, playing with fire a little bit too much. When you have opportunities to put teams away, got to really be able to put them away. Again, one-score wins against Kentucky and against Arkansas, like that's not anything to really write home to mom about. You know, yeah, you have a one-score loss against Georgia, and you can take a moral victory in that one if you want to, that it was on the road in Athens, and you played them tight, you played them tough, but you're going on the road against Oklahoma, which has a better defense than Georgia does, actually kind of shockingly, right? We expect Georgia with Kirby Smart to be the epitome of defensive football in this day and age, and right now they're just not that. Now they're a young team, and they're going to continue to grow and develop and be a better defense down the road than what they are now. But as things stand right now, Oklahoma's defense is better than Georgia's defense. And so Ole Miss coming into Norman for an 11 a.m. kickoff against a team that is playing great defensive football, that one-score game stuff, that may not fly. Again, you had a 3-point win against Washington State, a 5-point win against LSU, a 6-point win against Arkansas, and then you had your 7-point win against Kentucky. And you might look at that and be like, okay, Ole Miss kind of got out to big leads in the first half and teams came back on them. You know, a little bit true, but let's look at their point differential against Power 4 teams is just plus 10. That's it. You want to even throw Washington State into that where, hey, they used to be a Power 4 team. It's plus 13. You look at that second half point differential and it's minus 9. Ole Miss is minus 9 in the second half of games against Power 4 teams. That's not good. So again, some of that minus 8 of that comes from the Georgia game. Or I guess they were minus 17 against Georgia this past week. Let me make sure I got the math right on that. But Sorry, they were -9 against Georgia in the second half last week. But so you take that away, and they're just even in the point differential in the second half of games. That's not going to do it. It's probably going to be another tight ball game this week. The odds makers are projecting it to be so as well. And I think it will be. I think it will be a close game. But again, eventually, some of that luck runs out. You're on the road in a hostile environment where Oklahoma fans are going to show up and show out. Gabe Eichert had a great tweet about it, referencing Oklahoma's days in the Big 12 and how we're prepared to have a big-time fan-style performance in 11 a.m. kickoffs because we're used to all the 11 a.m. kickoffs. He was saying it maybe in jest, maybe not, but you could take it seriously and say, yeah, Oklahoma fans are built for it. Thank you, Big Noon Kickoff. I guess if there's anything that we have to thank you for, it's that. I mean, we did want to just play Nebraska at night, but at least you prepared us for this. So, it's going to be a big matchup, and it's going to be a tough matchup. Ole Miss is a good football team. They've got a good offense. Defense, maybe not as good, and we'll talk about that in the next couple of segments. But the offense is legit, and the offense can put up points on you in a hurry if you're not careful. The offense has got great skill talent. Trinidad Chambliss is playing great football right now. Discussed that a little bit in yesterday's episode, how they might be able to limit what he does well and force him to do some things he might not be as comfortable with. But they're playing good ball. Kewan Lacey is a really good running back, and they've got a good running game. So it's going to be Ole Miss's strength against Oklahoma's strength. Which one is going to be able to land some more blows? It's going to be like a heavyweight fight where, hey, they're going to trade shots. They're going to trade rounds. It's going to be, hey, this team got the better on that drive. This team got the better end on this drive. And it's going to be very much a back and forth heavyweight fight between one of the best offenses in college football and one of the best defenses in college football. And it's going to be super fun to watch. But if this thing comes down to, hey, it's a one-score game in the fourth quarter, I like Oklahoma's chances at home to be able to pull that out. Again, Ole Miss is not proven necessarily to be a great second half team, at least against Power 4 competition. They've made enough plays, but last week against Georgia, they didn't make enough plays. And again, your Oklahoma defense is better than what Georgia's putting on the field right now. So can Ole Miss go back to back with road games in big time environments against good competition? And can they rebound in that environment? I don't know if they can. It's going to be tough. And that doesn't even consider all of this discussion about, is Lane Kiffin a great fit for the Florida job? Will he bounce to Florida? Is that a place where he might land? That's certainly going to be weighing on the minds of Ole Miss fans. It's out there. Our guy Stephen Willis is having to address it as well over on Locked On Ole Miss. So it's going to be a talking point all week, and you can't imagine, or you have to imagine, that the players are thinking about it too. So how focused is this team going into Saturday? Are they going to be ready to play at 11 a.m.? Now, if it's an East Coast kick, it's more like 12 p.m. But I don't know, man. It sets up for Oklahoma to go have a really strong performance, and it has a chance to be one of those games, especially if John Mateer is just a little bit better than what he was against South Carolina, and he reverts back to what we saw against Auburn and Michigan. Has a chance to be a big win for Oklahoma. How can they win this one? We're going to discuss one way that they need to continue to attack teams, and that's by leaning on the offensive line. We'll discuss that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how they craft every model. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. And we're also brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet. designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors. This is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. I love how the Peloton IQ system offers real-time strength coaching. It actually tracks your reps, suggests the right weights, and corrects your form, making every rep safer and smarter. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. Once again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hey, just like we talked about a little bit in the first segment, this Ole Miss defense isn't necessarily the toughest defense that Oklahoma will face or has faced all season long. You go look at just some of the raw numbers here, and they're allowing 22.6 points per game, which, that's pretty solid, right? 53rd in the nation in points per game. From a passing perspective, they are past it, 38th in the nation, allowing 195.6 points per game. Okay, that's pretty okay. But it's where they rank in rushing yards allowed that I think gives Oklahoma an opportunity to be very successful. They're 99th in the nation, allowing 166.7 rushing yards per game. Teams are running the ball 35 times per game against them, and they're allowing an average of 4.7 yards per carry, which is tied for 108th in the nation. So there's opportunities there. And lo and behold, Oklahoma found a bit of a run game this past weekend against South Carolina, which is really encouraging. So let's look at what they've done in some of these games this season against some interesting competition. I'm not going to say they're better or worse than Oklahoma offensively or running the football, but against Georgia State, first week of the season, Georgia State in the game, Ole Miss won 63-7. Ole Miss allowed 35 carries for 191 yards. 5.5 yards per carry. That was the week one opener against Georgia State. Sure, they only allowed 7 points. Got a huge blowout win. But again, they allowed 191 rushing yards in that one, only 69 passing yards. So Georgia State went into that one saying, hey, we're going to run the football. And they did. They were very successful, 5.5 yards per carry. Really good performance. Kentucky, 37 carries, 172 yards, 4.6 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. Again, that was a 7-point loss for the Wildcats in a game that, it was pretty close throughout. At halftime, it was 17-13. Going into the fourth quarter, it was 27-20. So, Kentucky was very much in that game throughout. Then against Arkansas in week 3, the Razorbacks ran for 221 yards on 37 carries and 4 touchdowns. That was a big shootout win, 41-35 for Ole Miss. And again, in a game that was close in the first half and in the second half. Ole Miss only outscored Arkansas by 3 in the second half. And, it was a big rushing day. Taylor Green had 115 yards on 14 carries. Mike Washington had 65 yards. Braylon Russell, 37 yards. So it was a really balanced rushing attack for Arkansas in that one. And they just couldn't stop them. Tulane, even though they lost 45-10, they were able to run for 178 yards on 4.6 yards per carry against Ole Miss. LSU was kind of the one team that wasn't able to run against them. They only ran for 57 yards on 22 carries, 2.6 yards per attempt. They're terrible at running the football. But then the next week, LSU went and ran for 166 yards against South Carolina. So I don't know what to make of all that. Washington State, a team that is not great this year, they ran for 127 yards on 4.5 yards per carry against Ole Miss in a 24-21 loss. Again, a game that was close going into the fourth quarter. And then this past week against Georgia, the Bulldogs ran 49 times for 221 yards and 4.5 yards per carry. So there's opportunity for Oklahoma to continue to build on the rushing attack that we saw against South Carolina, and they need to continue to do that. We saw them really lean in the first quarter, give Tory Blaylock, he got 4 carries on that opening drive, which is absolutely huge. Remember, he only had 2 carries in the entire first quarter against Texas. That's how you want to go about this game. I expect John Mateer to continue to get better, further removed from his thumb injury or thumb surgery, and be more comfortable throwing the ball down the field. But you still don't want to just put everything on his shoulders. You don't want to put the weight of the world on his shoulders. You want to let the run game help dictate some of this stuff. You want to play, run the ball, play defense, because that's how your team's built. And so continue to feed Tory Blaylock, continue to feed Xavier Robinson. This has a chance to be another big game for those two. And if it is, Oklahoma's going to have a great chance to win this one. You don't necessarily want to get into a back and forth shootout with Ole Miss. You want your defense rested. So if you can lean in on that performance from the Oklahoma offensive line against South Carolina, and you can go and be a better version of that even against Ole Miss, and that's going to give you the chance to have a big victory. I mean, this is a top 10 opponent. We talked about how maybe South Carolina isn't as good as anybody expected. They might not be a good team, but they're better against the run than Ole Miss is. Again, we talked about Ole Miss. They ranked 99th in the nation in rushing yards allowed. South Carolina ranks 100 or 74th in the nation currently in rushing yards allowed. They only allow 3.9 yards per carry, while Ole Miss allows 4.7 yards per carry. So, that South Carolina team might not be great, might not even be good, but they're a little bit better against the run than Ole Miss is. And I think that's definitive. I think that says something. So that should be the focus again this week is let's establish the run early. Let's just continue to lean on it. Even if they stop you for a 2-yard gain, just keep pounding away. Use Tory Blaylock, use Xavier Robinson. Let their physicality help set the tone for this football game. You have a physical team, a physical defense, an offensive line that played the most physical game they've played since the Alabama game last year. Let them build on that by coming into this one saying, we are going to set the tone physically with our offensive line. And we are going to take the air out of the football. And by doing so, put more pressure on Trinidad Chambliss to have to make a play every single time he's on the field. And if you can do that, that's going to set your defense up for success. That, hey, if we can force Ole Miss to have to throw the ball, have to get out of balance, have to rely on, who has been a good quarterback. Trinidad's been great. But again, second half last week, he did not find a groove. If that carries over into this week at all, that's going to feed right into what Oklahoma wants to do. So I'm excited for, again, to see this run game take another step. I think they can do it. I think this is a team that they can absolutely run the ball against. John Mateer, I'm looking forward to seeing if he's more comfortable running the ball this week than he was last week. And if he finds more success running the football, just commit to it. Continue to do what you did. Spread them out. Get the tight end out of the formation. Get him out wide. Make them bring either a safety or a linebacker with him so that you have lighter boxes to run against. It was very successful last week. It could be successful again this week. And if they crowd the box while you're spread, that's when you throw it wide. That's when you use your screen game to the wide receivers to try and take advantage of the light situations on the outside. So just pound away, force them to adjust to you, and then you'll have an opportunity to hit some things down the field. It has the potential to be a really good rushing performance once again for the Oklahoma Sooners. Again, got to lean in on it. The offensive line has to show up with a tough, nasty physical mindset like they did last week against South Carolina. And like Brent Venables has talked about on multiple occasions, just moving the pile forward 1 yard at a time. And if the offensive line can build on that and they can show that, then I think they're going to have a great offensive performance again this week against the Ole Miss Rebels. We're going to have Jay back on our Friday show. He's got a long week out in Vegas doing stuff for his day job. And so this week is a lot of John. We'll have our crossover edition with Stephen Willis of Locked On Ole Miss for Thursday. So you want to check that out. Stephen's doing a great job covering all the angles from the Ole Miss Rebels over there. So you want to check out his work for sure. But we'll have a great conversation with him for Thursday. But then Jay will be back Friday to give us all of his thoughts, which I know he's got a lot of thoughts on this Ole Miss game. And so we'll be excited to hear about that. Who needs their best game, though, this week? We'll discuss that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. College football is back, and we couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real, actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout, and that's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best price with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. The app is super simple. I can even see the exact view from my seat before buying. I don't have to worry about obstructed views or weird angles. I'm going to love what I look at right inside the app. And I love the zone deals too. You pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save big. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go download Game Time today. Once again, thanks for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's going to be another great weekend of college football. And, dude, this is going to be one of several really big matchups. You got Texas A&M and LSU. You've got Missouri going to Vanderbilt. And College Game Day is going to be in Nashville for that one, which is going to be fire. Like, that's going to be fantastic. I really hope we get a package with Pat McAfee and Diego Pavia. Like those two, just that's same energy right there. So I'm excited for that. It's going to be a fun Saturday full of football. But Ole Miss and Oklahoma, I mean, it's probably the biggest matchup of the weekend. You know, you have the number 13 team in the AP poll, number 11 in the coaches poll versus the number 8 team in the polls with huge college football playoff implications on the line. You know, the winner of this one, I mean, if Ole Miss wins it, I mean, their path is pretty well set. Excuse me. Their path is pretty well set. They've got a great schedule ahead of them. They play South Carolina, the Citadel, Florida, and Mississippi State. If they beat Oklahoma, they could run the table and be 11-1 by the end of the season. If they don't beat Oklahoma and the Lane rumors continue to fly, this thing could fall off the wagon for them, but it starts here for them. For Oklahoma, the path is much more difficult to get to the college football playoff. So you have to have this one because it's a home game. You're going to go to Tuscaloosa and play a Tennessee team, which I think is a bit overrated. And then you're going to have to play at Alabama, who I think is a team that's maybe a little bit underrated, actually, being like number 4 in the polls. I think they're playing as good a football as anybody in college football right now. And then you have Missouri, who, listen, as much crap as I want to give Eli Drinkwitz, he's done a really great job with that program, and they're playing good ball right now. They're just winning games. It's not pretty, but they're winning football games. And then you finish the season with LSU, which by the time you get to LSU, there's a good chance Brian Kelly could no longer have a job or at the very least be on hot seat watch. And I like Oklahoma in that one a whole lot more now than I did at the beginning of the season. So it's a tough schedule. So let's finish our discussion. Let's talk about this game, though, against Ole Miss. Who needs to have their best game? And to me, it's the secondary. Your defensive front is great. Your linebackers are playing really good ball. But against this Ole Miss team, this has a chance to be a shootout if you're not careful. It has a chance to let Ole Miss have some big numbers. They've got a really good wide receiver core, guys that create big plays, guys that are able to take a short pass and break away for a big game or a big gain if you let them get away from you. Oklahoma has given up, splash plays here and there throughout the season. And this is one of those games that if you're not minding your P's and Q's, that you could give up some big pass plays. I was going to find. So you've got several guys with the Rebels that are averaging more than 15 yards per reception. You have 4 guys in that passing game that are averaging more than 15 yards per. Actually, no, was it 5 guys? So you have Caden Lee averaging 18.1 yards per reception. Deshaun Stripling averaging 15.3. Deuce Alexander 17.4. Tight end Daquan Wright He's averaging 20.7 yards per reception on 19 catches for 393 yards, and he's got 3 touchdowns. My gosh. And then Harrison Wallace III, he's averaging 19 yards per reception. What's interesting about this is those 5 guys I just mentioned are averaging more than 40 yards per game. So one thing that's a little bit different with Trinidad Chambliss versus Jackson Dart is, Jackson Dart was very much reliant on Trey Harris to kind of be the guy in the offense, and he was just humming the ball to him every opportunity he got. Well, Trinidad, he's spreading the ball out. He's spreading the love, so to speak. And again, you've got 5 guys with more than 16 or 6 guys with more than 16 catches. You throw Kewan Lacey in there. He's got 16 catches for 97 yards, not averaging, but 6.1 yards per reception, but he's getting opportunities. So you have 6 guys with at least 16 catches, nobody with more than 22 receptions. So the ball gets distributed. Trinidad is doing a great job of that. And so this is a game where the secondary has to be on point. The ball could be going anywhere. It could be going to the right, to the left, down the field, over the middle of the field, in the short area of the field, and these guys can create big plays. So this is a Peyton Bowen, Robert Spears-Jennings, Eli Bowen, Gentry if you're healthy, Jacoby Johnson, Cortland Guillory, Devon Jordan. Like, these guys you have to play your best game of the year as a unit. You've had some solid performances. You've had some moments where you've made some good plays, but you haven't had that breakout game yet. And this is the week. If there's a week that this group has to step up and be at their absolute best, this is the week, because you're going to be challenged every single play by this group, by Trinidad Chambliss, by Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin is going to make sure that you're keyed in on your responsibilities. If you're not keyed in on your responsibilities, you're going to give up a bust. You're going to give up a big play. So you have to be. There's no room, no margin for error in this one. You have to be locked in and assignment sound every single time. When the ball is in the air, you got to make a play on it. You can't have your back to the football when it's a downfield shot. Lane Kiffin is going to take some downfield shots on you. He's not going to just dink and dunk throughout the game. He's not, in Trinidad, he's not going to just wait for a guy to be open. He's going to put the ball out there and let his guys go make a play. And so when that ball is up in the air, those outside cornerbacks got to make a play. The safeties, when the ball's in the air, you got to make a play. This is one of those weeks where you want to have some eyes on the football. I mean, Trinidad's not turning the ball over. He's only got 1 interception on the season. But if you are playing with your back to the ball, you're going to get beat a lot. They've got 4 guys with more than 10 receptions for a first down this season. I was looking to see if I can find their receiving depth. Here it is. Well, no. I mean, they got a bunch of guys with 20-yard receptions on the season. Trinidad, he's completed 13 balls beyond 20 yards on the year. So it's going to be, they're going to try and take some shots. They're going to want to take the air out of the building early in this game with big plays. So the defensive secondary in particular, you've got to be at your best. You've had some good moments. Again, like I said, you've had some good plays, but it's been very up and down. It's been a roller coaster ride. So now is your time to step up. The offensive line stepped up last week. Now it's your time to step up. It's your time to answer some of the questions. It's your time to answer the bell, so to speak, and go put on a performance that supports your defensive line's efforts, supports your linebackers' efforts, and doesn't allow Ole Miss to create big plays to put pressure on your offense. Got to shut down any opportunity for big plays, keep everything in front of you. And if you keep everything in front of you and you make them drive the ball, that feeds into your team's success. If you let them get big plays, that's going to be a lot harder for you to slow them down. Keep everything in front of you, tackle well. Everybody's got to tackle well in this game, whether it's on Trinidad, Kewan Lacey, or these receivers and tight ends out in space. Got to tackle well. This has to be a great tackling game from the defense as well. And that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in and being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. If you haven't hit the subscribe button over on YouTube, please do so. It just helps more people find out about the show. And then if you like what you hear, go leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love to hear your feedback. Listen, even if you don't like what we do, feel free to leave some feedback over there. We'd love to hear that as well. As long as it's constructive. Don't just be like, oh, these guys suck. That's not helpful. Anyway, I appreciate you all very much. And again, we'll have Jay back on the show for our Friday episode, and then we'll be breaking this game down after it goes final on our Locked On Post Game Live. And we're going to have Locked On Ole Miss and a crossover for Thursday's show as well. So make sure you're tuned into that. We'll have great discussion, I'm sure, about Lane Kiffin and the potential for the Florida job. It's going to come up. But until next time, I'm John Williams. Catch you then. Boomer Sooner.